There we go. Okay. So that meeting, I know I'd said it before, but our YouTube video got has 35 views right now, and there were about 27 people on the call last meeting for our meeting with the DEP and the extended representatives that were there too. So I think that's great. I think that's one of our highest meeting counts yet in views yet. Um, so I think it's a huge positive. I just wanted to open up with just like general thoughts of that meeting. I mean, everybody had a chance. I think mostly everybody was either on or had a chance to watch it after the fact. That's here now. But I just figured we'd just open up and have like a 10, 15-minute discussion on that meeting, just some general takeaways and stuff like that. Um,
It was a really good meeting.
yeah, no, I thought it was very productive. I thought it was really informative. A lot of the same information and ways that we've been hearing from different folks, which has been great. And a lot of good information too about the grants and stuff, which is awesome.
The I was happy to hear from Jeff Daniels and Linda Bacon
Yeah.
that this lake is a very good candidate for alum. Because
Yeah, yeah.
the past 25 years, all I was told was it's not a good candidate.
And I definitely wanted to touch on that too, so I'm glad you brought it up. And if anybody remembers the conversation or the meeting that we had with Bates, it kind of runs in contrast to what the researcher, or the Holly and Bates had said about how fast the lake empties the water in there, and alum treatment. So I guess, does anybody have any knowledge about that, or does anybody want to discuss that?
Knowledge about what?
Alum treatment. So we have two not necessarily contradicting viewpoints in a way, but they're saying two different things. One says that um, alum treatment doesn't seem like a big possibility, and the other says that it is. So I mean, that's kind of like a decision and a trade-off that we are going to have to
Well,
face down the road, and which avenue we want to pursue.
what
Um,
what what I got out of it was the alum treatment would last longer if we did not draw the lake down so much.
Yeah, that goes along with like my understanding and like how much or how quickly the water in the lake recycles itself or exits. Justin, you have a hand up? Go for it.
He raised a hand for me. This is
Oh,
Leslie.
hey
Um,
Leslie.
yeah, I had the same, like after last week, I was thinking through the same thing, and it's almost like both sounded true. So I'd love to learn more about how alum treatment works
Hmm.
because it's a combination of connecting the aluminum to the phosphorus molecules, and how does it get out of the lake? So it's like two both things are true in a way. So I'm really curious, and
When
I'm sure there's other studies where they can say like how it works. I know nothing about it, but I was intrigued that the contradictory evidence of, well, this might work or it might not. So I'm intrigued.
Yeah,
Sabattus has no naturally occurring aluminum in the soils,
yeah,
which is there's no aluminum, so the phosphorus can't bind with it. By introducing alum, which is aluminum oxide, it gives you the aluminum that the phosphorus binds with, and it seals it on the bottom.
yeah. I think yeah, and that's my understanding of it too, Dan. And I guess in to Leslie's point too, I think it's a great thing to learn more about just because and it's a great point too because I don't think it's necessarily like contradicting, and I don't think that's the right word that I use there, but it's I guess two options that are in front of us, and just maybe we need to learn more information about it to make a more informed choice in that way. But
Yeah.
no,
Talking to Jeff Dennis, Cocknawagan, right up the road here, had an alum treatment years ago that lasted 20 years.
yeah,
And just a few years ago, they retreated it because I think they went 23 years and retreated it because it was turning again. Now, another thing I heard in that meeting that Sabattus's external load is not that great like it used to be. Take away most of the farms, take away the chicken plant. So that has reduced the external load. So our phosphorus problem is mostly from internal load right now.
I see. I understood that a little bit differently. Definitely that there was a huge reduction in the amount of like phosphorus that comes from external sources. I guess my one concern would be how much is still left historically from those activities in the soil, because you know that type of activity doesn't just seep on, just doesn't stay on the top layer. You know, if it sits there, even if it was 50 years ago, it still seeps down in, and erosion takes time. So I think they did mention too, like that an accurate accounting of what is existing for external loads hasn't been done in some time, and that's part of the process of the watershed plan. That was my understanding.
Well, the 3 watershed surveys that we've done,
Yeah,
2 watershed surveys, 1 shoreline survey. But the last one expired in 2017.
I think it was like,
Right.
yeah,
It
yeah,
expired.
Yeah.
because they're only good for 10 years or something
Right.
like that.
But yeah, doing another watershed survey, yeah, it could be done.
But
I-
don't they test the water, what's in the water and not on the bottom too?
I think they did talk a little bit about that, Wayne.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
That's what Bates is doing right now.
I think Bates is testing the actual water, not necessarily like the soil or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
so if
Um,
you test the water and what's in the water, doesn't that sort of help you understand what's bringing is it septic systems, is it fertilizer, is it runoff, is it chicken farm,
Well, when they're testing the water, they really can't tell what's internal loading against external loading. They're just telling you what the load is in the water.
Okay.
And Linda was talking a lot about like because remember we had touched upon the monitoring program, and they definitely recommended that too,
Yes.
which was excellent to hear. And they talked about it more or less informing like where specifically we should target, not necessarily like it would inform like a lot of things like we already know, like how severe condition the pond is in. You know, the main DEP knows that, like we know that, people who live around the pond know that it's in bad shape. It's more or less to specifically target and use limited resources in an effective way, is what I was understanding it as. So the establishment of that monitoring program over this winter to kind of come out in full force in the springtime is definitely a top priority, I think, for us as a group.
But you've got to specify what program. What are we monitoring for? I mean, monitoring for clarity is simple. Monitoring for DO is simple, relatively. But then you start monitoring for color.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to monitor for phosphorus, which is kind of extensive. You have to take water samples and send that to the lab.
Haven't we done it already over the years?
People
We've done
have,
it
yeah.
quite a bit over the years.
So why do I keep going back to why reinvent the wheel? We already know. We
Yeah.
all,
It changes every year.
I know, but we got it. We've got something from the data. There's enough data to say, I mean, you could test forever and never solve the problem.
Yes, exactly.
So you know, at some point you gotta take action. And
Totally right.
I know we are now, but it just I hate to sound like a broken record, but we gotta stop testing. We gotta stop doing. There's 50 years of data.
I agree with you 100% because 25 or 30 years I've done the testing.
I know that's what I'm saying, sir. You already know.
Yeah,
I mean,
but I was always told that an alum treatment won't work on this lake. But in that meeting, I heard from a number of people who said an alum treatment would be perfect for this lake.
so there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Well,
How do we make that
the
happen?
problem is it's $1.5 million to do it.
It's expensive. Yeah.
Well,
And
isn't it worth it to the state of Maine that lake not die?
Well, we'd have to jump through the hoops and then apply for federal grants.
So that's
And an alum
Get
treatment
it
is
started.
5 years away.
oh wow.
oh, I would
Well-
say honestly more so because the watershed plan is a couple years, and then the plan to create the watershed plan is about 2 years, and then the watershed plan itself is some time as well. And then you'd have to try to get extra funding to cover the cost of the alum treatment. But funding
But that's
sources
doable.
it is doable. I definitely think it is doable. And if that's the way we want to go down, I definitely think it's a viable option and it's something that can be accomplished. I think another thing now that just that we're talking on funding formulas, and Justin, I see your hand. I'll grab you in a second. But the legislature at that scale. Diane, can I mute you real quick? I think I'm getting a feedback from you. Oh, thank you. Funding formulas, like at this scale, at the town scale and at the community scale, that type of resources is difficult to obtain, the cost of that. And this is where I think it comes in that to lobby your state representatives, about these issues. They are in the state legislature and control the budgets, and they have say in these types of things. So I would just make a real short plug that if this issue means a lot to you, whoever's watching, make that known to your state legislature. We have 3 different communities in this, or 5 different communities really that encompasses parts of this watershed. And I think it's about 4 state representatives or 3 state representatives total, and then
We
other
have
state senators.
We have 2 state representatives that are, one is Green and Sabattus, the other is Wales.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Wales and Monmouth. And then our state senator, I think he encompasses all 3 towns.
At least Sabattus, Litchfield, and Wales. I think Monmouth and Leeds are different, but
Well,
Yeah.
we're talking Sabattus, Wales, and Green.
yeah, but remember this is like a watershed issue, so it's not necessarily like it primarily does encompass the 3 communities that are surrounding the pond, but there are secondary inputs that do come from the watershed itself, and any encompassing plan should really target all 5 communities in that way. And Justin, go for it. Sorry about that. Or Leslie.
No, it's me this time. Thank you. So, first of all, Nick, I just wanted to say thank you for getting all of those people together. That must have been very time consuming and difficult to orchestrate that and coordinate everybody's schedule for that meeting. So I think that was fantastic. I don't know how long that took you, but I would love to have a part 2 of that meeting where we could continue talking about some of the things that we left off. And for the life of me, I'm really frustrated because I took like a couple pages of notes and I can't find them. I have no idea where they are.
That's
So,
heartbreaking.
so forgive me for a couple things that I
I
mentioned
lost
here.
them. It's my fault.
But
They're in my office.
I, as far as the alum treatment, I don't really remember Bates, the discussion of that with Bates with Holly Ewing. I do remember talking about that afterwards with Ken. He mentioned that at a meeting afterwards. But I guess what, you know, I have multiple questions here, and maybe we can touch on this for next time, but getting Holly together with the most recent study with some of those individuals who have been studying this lake since the 80s, and kind of see how their data kind of mash it all together and see how it kind of correlates. What I thought was interesting is Holly mentioned, I did find those notes from the Bates, draining that lake earlier in the summer, like 5 to 10 years in a row might help the water quality. And I do remember one of the people, and I can't remember who it was talking about. I think it was 1989 to 2000. They saw like a 25% increase in the quality of the lake until I think the towns took it over with the dam commission somewhere around the turn of the century. And then that kind of changed, which I don't know if that is why that happened and why
You
the
said
water got worse after that. I don't know if it's
99 to 2000.
I think it was 1989 to 2000. They saw a 25% increase in the quality of the lake when they were managing draining it earlier. And I thought that was really interesting because 1989, when they started that study, was kind of really not that far removed from when the egg farms were still operational. You know, 15 to 20 years.
1989 was when they ended the study. Actually, 1987 is when it ended.
So
Started in 77.
That's what was said in the meeting, is that the water was 25% better from like 1989 to 2000, because I wrote it down in my notes that that's kind of when the dam commission took over. And
No,
I think that's when it was said in the, you know, I think Nick mentioned that the later pushback of draining the water. So I was just wondering if there's a correlation to, that's why I would like to get Holly together with draining the lake earlier in the summer. If that would help at all.
draining the lake early in the summer didn't help.
I mean,
Draining it in September didn't help.
I mean, there is evidence
What
to
did help
suggest.
was the source system. That was a major positive, and it was noticeable. And that's 1983.
So I do remember them saying that, Justin. Something I can't remember the specific dates. YouTube, when I upload it to YouTube, it creates a transcript. So I'm looking through that right now to see if when that was said. But they did say there was an increase in water. There was an improvement in water quality within those certain amount of years. And I believe it did end around that time. And like when the dam commission was formed, it's not necessarily like I don't think it's necessarily like that specifically. I'm sure there are many factors, but that is what they said. And I'm trying to find the actual wording right here. And Holly did talk about flushing it in the summertime for a potential benefit. And I've seen research and done and read the research and wrote about it, that dam flushing during peak algae blooms is specifically when you want to do it for that process, to remove the algae from the top layers of the water as quickly as possible.
If I can interject here,
Yeah.
Nick. If you are top skimming, that'll help. But all through the 1977 to 1987, which was the original 10-year project, they had no top skim capabilities. Later on, we implemented top skim, and that's what the Dam Commission did in 2001. And we've used it, and there's been improvement from the top skimming because it's taking the algae right off the top. If you were at the dam and saw when you open the bottom draw gate, you're drawing clear water.
Right.
But if you're and you're standing on the dam, you can see the green flowing over the top. But you open the bottom draw gate and it puts out clean water.
So theoretically, this summer, theoretically, with all the water going over the dam, should have helped.
It did.
Yes? Okay,
It helped a lot. But we had so much influx that it was carrying in a lot of phosphorus also.
okay, that makes
In
sense.
other words, if the water wasn't going over the top, the lake would have been worse. And you
Yeah,
know,
which
I've
does
seen this since 1980. In fact, you should have the data on it, Nick.
I have.
The clarity readings starting in 1977. You'll notice that our average clarity for that year was 2 meters, 2.1 meters. And then when they started the drawdown in 1980, somehow it dropped down to 1.3 meters. And it didn't come back up to 2 meters until after the source system in Sabattus was put into place.
And I mean, a couple.
Where is it? Where is this data written down? Are those in the studies that you've seen, Nick? Because I don't remember hearing that. And Dan, I'm not trying to come off as confrontational, but it seems that you're.
I've got it somewhere, Justin.
Okay.
But the yearly.
I'm just confused why we have multiple scientific data points, but every time we bring this up, you seem to take offense to that and say that you know best and we need to do this instead of that. When I think that with trying to get everybody together scientifically and historically for people who live on the lake to make a community and a group effort to get everything back for all of us to help.
I take offense to it, Justin, because I have the data and I can read what it did, and I knew what was happening in those years. What you don't know is we used to get bottom readings here in the in the mid 2000 to 2010 or so. We would get bottom readings, which is 5.5, 5.6 meters. So drop your Zika disc down and we could see the Zika disc without even looking through the scope. That's how clear the water was in the spring.
Yeah, and Dan, I don't think we're trying to discount your experience, but it is just one individual experience.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and like what we're hearing from people who also have access to the data is something a little bit differently. So like when we're talking about it, we're not directly like insulting the dam commission or doing any, or saying anything about the data you collected. I mean, it's important work and you did it for a long time and it's invaluable. But we are just trying to collectively just make decisions based off of all of that stuff now and more factors too, from in educational institutions, from institutions at the state. Like when I started this, it was all about the complexity of it. And that's the point that I tried to put across. It's many different factors impacting it at once, and it's not just one or two different measurements that signify the lake's clarity during that time. And I think just getting bogged down in the weeds of like, during this time to this time and improved from one source and it didn't for another. I think that's just a dead end right now. I think the getting everybody together and talking is exactly what we need to do and keep moving forward that way. That's why I've just been having these speakers come in and like, hopefully, like this is just the beginning of a relationship with the people who spoke at our last meeting. It's just establishing that connection to use as a resource. I am on the data that I looked at when I did my research was mainly the phosphorus data. And that I have right here. One second, just pulling it up. And that's right here. This is TPEC, total phosphorus micrograms per liter. And I imagine you're the one who took this, Dan, with a Siki disc.
No, that's micrograms per liter. That is not clarity. That is actual phosphorus load.
Yeah. And that, I mean, as you can see, it ebbs and flows from year to year, but it doesn't drop below 20 micrograms per liter at all. And if you remember what Linda Bacon said last week, anything above typically 12 micrograms per liter has a chance to produce a bloom. So, I mean,
Yes.
Since data was beginning to be collected in 1977 from the historical record, we've been way above the mark for what produces algae blooms in our pond since 2018.
Since 2018?
Oh, up until 2018. Sorry, 1977 to 2018, right there.
Do you have a clarity chart?
I'm on the water quality website. Can you all see the screen?
Mhm.
Transparency data is here. And it goes back from 1977. Oh, here we go. So the average is probably what we want to look at right here. Is this too small?
The average is what you want to see. Or the yearly averages, yes.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not a scientist in that way. Like, I couldn't look at this directly without doing quite a lot of research to figure out like what is good and what is bad, what impacts the problem in a negative way and what impacts the problem in a positive way. I mean, that's the point of like getting together with everybody. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the point of connecting with Bates. That's the point of connecting with the main DEP, getting as many people at this table as we can. That's the point of connecting with all of the people who are part of this group. Just that's what we're doing. We're forming a coalition of people to eventually make a decision on how to best do this, because I don't think that was particularly done in the past with that many minds thinking about this many different things, or else the problem would have been fixed by now.
That's my point that I've been trying to say is there's years and years and years of data. Some of it agrees and some of it conflicts. The neat thing to be able to do is to have the people who took the data all sit down in a room somewhere and break it all down to a root cause or whatever. Because Dan has good information, Bates has good information, people over the years have been collecting data. It's all there. It just needs to be crunched down. I don't know how to say it. Just.
Hey, Nick, did you find out who took those soil samples of the bottom?
The core samples from.
Said yeah.
She did, and I emailed that student, but I did not hear a response back. I literally just emailed her 2 days before, I think, our meeting with the main DEP, so about over 2 weeks ago now.
Okay.
But I'm sure I'll hear a response back. I did actually hear a response back from a professor from an institution in Massachusetts who talked about alewives. I had spoken about it earlier this summer, that I had sent an email to him back when we were first diving into that talk. And he responded back, and I have a phone call with him next Monday at around 11:30. So to just talk about alewives and how they potentially could impact a pond with this type of water quality issue. and just to go from there. So I should have more information about that too. But so there
I
is.
think the soil samples will be, or the core samples that they took will be, depending on what she was searching for.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure they'll be informative. I just don't know what she was specifically looking for. So
Right.
yeah.
You
Okay.
know, I was looking for the, they sliced up the samples to uh, uh, half millimeters, little slices.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I bet it was to see how far down the nutrient load goes into the waterbed.
Yeah.
They were looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I have just one more point on that.
Yeah.
If we get an alum treatment, and this is an if, we better be ready for invasive aquatic plants, because the lack of clarity in the lake is probably why we don't have any invasive plants yet.
I mean, it could be a factor. I don't know, and that's definitely a conversation to have, and one of those trade-offs that I talked about. You know, because when you make a decision to do something, when you have finite resources, which is what every single one of us has to do every day, there are trade-offs to every single decision you make. I'm not advocating for one way or the other, but I definitely do think analyzing those trade-offs is super important. And Justin, just to get
just to be prepared. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean, I don't know I don't know how much of an influence that is, so I just can't comment on it. Like, if it affects the water quality in plants, invasive plants that would attach down low, don't get enough sunlight to survive, then sure, I'm sure it has some type of impact. But I mean, that's why we are trying to bring in, like, biologists and limnologists and everything like that to help us make these decisions, because as the stakeholders, you should ultimately have those final says. It's just, I view my position here as trying to facilitate the information and getting it to you all to make that decision collectively, with those who have that information, to an extent, to however much you want to include them in that. But ultimately, to just try to fix this problem in a community that I care about and in a place that I want to still be around in 100 years, or still be usable in 100 years. And Justin, just to get back to your point about Holly and the alum treatment, it was at the end of the conversation during the discussion phase when we had somebody had mentioned alum treatment. I think it was one of the select board members from Sabattus. And she had talked about the recycling rate of the pond and how much. So I know there's a technical term for this, but it's escaping me right now. Like, essentially, how much, how quickly in a time frame the water that enters the pond will eventually leave the pond. So how quickly it recycles, and how long it stays in there. And she said that Sabattus Pond is about a year, if I remember correctly.
1.52.
1.52. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would mean that anything that we put into the pond, at least from my understanding, would only last 1.252 years, essentially. Or
Oh, well, no, no. The alum is on the bottom.
yeah, but soil doesn't stay in the lake. That recycles too, because
The alum stays on the bottom. Where we run into problems with alum is the lake gets rough and it stirs up the bottom. So the alum gets redistributed in the water column.
Yeah,
So
and
if
since
we're in the middle of a drawdown and it gets real rough and we're drawing from the bottom, a lot of that soil, a lot of that oil, alum is going out.
and
But doesn't
Sabattus,
it, it's just Justin's wife was saying, what doesn't it attach to phosphorus or another? Isn't it
The
attached to
phosphorus,
something?
yeah, the phosphorus attaches to the alum. But if the alum gets resuspended and we're in the middle of a drawdown, a lot of that alum gets carried out of the lake. So we would actually, after doing an alum treatment, I would say we'd have to rethink drawing the lake down as much as we do. Or draw the lake down only with a top draw. There's different avenues to take.
and I know that purview lies under the Dam Commission currently, to decide when and how the lake is drawn down.
Yes.
But Sabattus is also a very shallow pond, and it stratifies fairly often. Or sorry, it doesn't stratify; it mixes fairly often.
It doesn't stratify.
Sorry, Dan, I just corrected it. It mixes very often. So when it mixes, it pushes that, assuming the alum treatment binds and it's in the soil, it pushes that soil up into the water column, like you said, and it then leaves the pond. So I mean, it still is something to consider. And if you're in a community or we are raising funds, 1.2 million, or when I priced it out 2 years ago, it was a little under $1 million per square feet. And that was just a very rough back of the envelope calculation. I mean, that's not something you want to spend and only is effective for 2, 3, 4 years, that's not a cost that is feasible or sustainable to continuously keep putting in.
There has to be a great deal of research on this subject. And
Absolutely.
what I'm thinking about is that maybe Wayne is familiar with this, but there's the Everglades Restoration Project here in Southwest Florida. It's a $10 billion project that's supposed to go over 35 years to treat the water with alum to restore the Everglades. And that's where the Army Corps of Engineers. Yeah.
Okay.
And the Army Corps of Engineers involved, and of course federal funding is involved. It's a hot item. It's a hot topic. And I don't think that it would be difficult to learn a whole lot about alum treatment.
Well, I think we ought to at least get in line for it and start trying to go in that direction.
Right.
Especially if it's going to take 2 or 3 years to put it in place.
At least.
And that kind of brings me to my last thing I wanted to talk about, that I took away from that meeting, is essentially no matter what happens, whatever we want to do, we need to raise funds to match those grants. Something that I think was new information is that even the 604B requires a 25% match on whatever we apply for. And that's the one that's due in February, I believe, of this year. And I don't know how feasible it is to raise that type of money in this amount of time. Essentially, what they were suggesting would be $150,000 is available, they said. Most grants are awarded between $15,000, and $40,000. You then have to kind of consider that a lot of that work that's done is contract work in ways. And that might need to be contracted out, at least the more technical aspects of it. We would certainly need to analyze, I guess, where we could potentially save money in those ways and have volunteers do that type of work, or the background admin work, which I am more than willing to do and to facilitate. But I think incorporation as a nonprofit is definitely a next thing that we need to discuss. in order for us to raise money to able to apply for these grants. And like we also learned is that we have to do it in conjunction with a quasi-municipal or municipal administration or organization. And so that would be either the Androscoggin County Soil and
Androscoggin Valley.
Androscoggin Valley. Thank you.
Soil and Water Conservation District.
Yeah. Or of the
With on the other 3 watershed surveys.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, they did. So
And I don't think any of those people are still there, Dan.
No, but the organization is still there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and we've been in contact with a representative from there. She was actually at the meeting that we had with the Maine DEP, and they're the ones I've been emailing back and forth with as well about this too. So they are informed on what's going on and everything like that. But immediately, I guess work for me for next steps is to figure out incorporating. So there's a couple
Didn't
things.
Georgia say she'd help you?
She did, yeah, and I was actually just about to go into that. So
Okay.
there's a couple questions I have to ask. So we do need board members for this. I'm very open to the amount of board members that we would have. I think the minimum is 3, just to set it up with the state of Maine to get a nonprofit status. And I need to look into whether or not, because I don't mind filing the paperwork. I don't even mind paying the $150 fee to set it up. And that would, those 3 board members would be something separate from me to essentially like be a check and balance on, you know, the money that comes in and everything like that. I need to check, and this is one of the things I want to talk to Georgia about. I need to check to see if it needs to be a main address. Because like all of you know, I live in Philadelphia right now. I do a lot of this stuff remotely. And we would need to have a main address. Justin, go for it.
Yeah, Nick, with as far as like setting that up, completely agree. And I know we've been talking about this for months and months and months. You know, Leslie and I are more than willing to use our address if you need a main address.
Awesome.
You know, as far as the upfront cost, that shouldn't be on you.
We'll
You
figure it out.
I mean, if there's 10 people on this call, if we all donated $15, we'd be fine, right? Like, you know, I think we can figure that out to set that up. I think that is, you know, we should put that on it seems like we've had that on an agenda in the past, and then we get sidetracked and we don't really follow through with that. So we should make that a priority for December.
Because fundraising is going to be the next, that's what we need to do. And
Absolutely, yeah.
once we have that and an account that is set aside as the right tax exempt 403, whatever, the
403B.
403B, whatever that is, that's retirement, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a 501.
501c.
501c,
Thank you.
yeah.
Sorry. I've worked in nonprofits, and like 403B is my retirement, 501c that get that, like just start that rolling. And it feels to apply for a grant this year feels a little tight. Do you say February is when?
February would be the deadline for the 604B for this year. Or sorry, April, I think is the deadline, but they say you want to have like the ducks in a row by February and then draft the reports and you know, that stuff by then. So
Yeah.
that was my thought process. And so if we're asking, say, for, you know, $40,000 or $50,000 to, you know, create a plan to come up with this watershed plan, or to create a watershed plan with the 604B, which we need in order to apply for the 319 grant, which is the access to more funding, a larger pool. We would need 25% of 50 grand. So, I mean, that's a substantial amount, I think, to try to raise right off the bat. I don't think it's not doable. I think it just is a lot of background stuff there.
When we need that, oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off, friend.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. But Nick, you're saying we'd have to come up with $12,500?
If, according to the match, if we determine that we need 50,000, that we're going to request 50,000 for that 604B grant, we would need to match 25% of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm of course thinking of like events that are happening around here where we could launch. I have a lot of experience in nonprofit fundraising, so I'm happy to help and push and call in all my friends on that. $13,000 seems not unsurmountable if we need to make it happen quickly. I want to be optimistic here.
I do
Yeah.
as, yeah. And that experience is invaluable too. So seriously, thank you. But
It's just like you hold the golf tournament. I'm like, oh, there's no golf this time of year. Then you hold the fishing tournament. Well, the Derby isn't until later. Like, so I'm.
Well, that's for the
and
boosters.
I know. So we kind of need like our own thing. But
sports games in the district. Basketball is going on now, I think.
I think it's basketball. It's like what the cash
Tennis?
calendar. Like my kid's school does a cash calendar, and you sell those everywhere. And somehow we'll figure it out. But I'm happy to run point and help out in any way I can, and leverage any and all friends in the neighborhood to help make that happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can have a separate fundraising meeting. I think my goal for the next, because the dam commission meeting is next week. So we should, we're not going to have a meeting next week, but the meeting that we come back, I want to have everything, all the ducks squared away and in a row, and that paperwork pretty much ready to go and submit for a January 1 start date for whatever we got. So even if it is just fill in a little canister outside of a mart, we can literally go and deposit that in the bank accounts. We'll be all set that way. I think we do need to pick, I think an executive director needs to be picked as well.
I agree.
Yeah. So I can have a summary of those things. I know I have a document somewhere because I did help a couple people set up nonprofits in Maine a few years ago. So I have a document somewhere. I'm going to go dig that up, and it has like the cost estimates and stuff too. So what I'll do in between now and our next meeting is, like I said, get a summary together, get that paperwork done. I'll reach out to you guys for the address, and I got to talk to Georgia and Anthony as well, just to make sure any legal stuff is covered. But I definitely think that should be number one. And we did talk about it like a long time ago, and people have done work on it. I remember there was some hesitation about becoming more formalized in that way, like our informal things. We don't necessarily have to change how we meet or how we do things. There will need to be, I think, a regular just board meeting that meets once a month. But other than that, we can still keep our same style in this way if it's amicable. Dan?
From what I'm hearing, should we be selling memberships?
The thing is that is an option. That's a thing that a lot of nonprofits do. I guess my hesitation right off the bat would kind of just be like any barriers maybe to engagement. I wouldn't want that to be a barrier to engagement with us at all, or participation. I think just being in the community should be enough for you to allow you to come in and have your voice heard in that way. If somebody does maybe want to pay a membership fee as like a volunteer thing, I'm totally into that. But again, like when we officially form, that is 100% decisions that will most likely be made by the board, and then pushed to the executive director to implement those things in ways is usually how that goes.
Yeah, because
That's the type of thing that should be presented on a donation basis.
needs money.
I'm sorry, you guys were talking, Ken?
Yeah, that's the type of thing that should be presented on a donation basis. Or
Yeah,
like you say, not to defer anybody from coming in, but we're willing to take donations.
Yes. Which would be
The mug.
If you're a gold platinum donor, you get a cool mug,
I
right,
just-
Donna?
So not to be like micro here, but Donna, I would pay $30 for that mug. And I think, like if we get Main Street Market behind it, we print it, like if we're a nonprofit and we have that ability to stickers and mugs, which I drink out of every day, by the way, thank you. That goes a long way. And if we have local partners like who will merchandise it for us, and we can put
Geiger
out.
is huge, and they do promotional stuff all the time for promotional gear and things like that. So
I think you start small, but you also shoot big. Like if we need to raise $13,000 by what's the date? Just
February.
February is what I
Wow,
have
that's a
written
lot.
You just, I mean, my kids raise that much for soccer, like, and
Okay.
more. Like we can figure that. I feel like we
Wow.
can figure that. Oh yeah, it's $10 for a roll of wrapping paper, Donna. Can you believe that? But there are ways to do
Oh,
it.
yeah. Well, you're valuable.
Well, no, I don't want to oversell my. I write checks. That's what I do.
Oh, that's good
but
to know, though.
I think like, Jess and I are sitting here thinking about, well, how much could we afford right now? Like if you had one charity to donate to before the end of the year, like, all right, well, if we could, pump that money there, we donate every year, and why couldn't it be to this
Mhm.
instead of something else?
absolutely.
And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and a little bit, again, what did you say? Like $25 a person or $100 a person goes, it grows quickly.
Yes, it does. That's what, would you call that a membership? Or just
I agree
the
that
donation?
the membership feels prohibitive for some folks. So and
Okay.
again, having run like nonprofit events, like you put on a concert or a show and you say donations at the door. Some people are going to put no money in. Some people are going to put $100 in. So it kind of evens out when you put it on the donor to decide. It could work. It could backfire. I think in my experience, when you say donations at the door, you do all right. But making it, I mean, if we all want to commit just as this small group and say, okay, everybody, there's a number and we're all going to like put $25 in to be part of this and start this account. If that's something we could all commit to, or whatever your number is, like I'm throwing out $25 as an amount, but then we can start the account and it will grow from there. And then you just have to plant the seed and let it grow. But I know Jess and I would be willing to donate today to get this started and see how far we can go with it.
And like one of the benefits too of being a nonprofit is like if you solicit donations from businesses or from even individuals, it's a tax write-off, and you can give them.
And it's a good time of year for a tax write-off.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
So we can definitely do that. And another thing too, I want to ask Anthony and Georgia about is if I reside in Philadelphia, and like one of the benefits of having the address be in Maine is that I think if it was in Philly, we'd have to pay taxes in both places, which is just insane. So there's no reason for that. So definitely a Maine address is 100%, I think, necessity.
We're happy to absorb that.
Well, and we can even create a PO box at the post office specifically for the Watershed partnership.
The postmaster. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, so it's $75.
Not if you live on a road where they don't deliver mail. It's free.
It's free.
Oh, no way. Okay.
No, why have I been paying for 20 years for a mail?
Is
for a post office
your
box?
main residence in Florida?
But it wasn't. And I had a post office box and they don't deliver on my road. I didn't know that.
Justin, and he will talk to the postmaster for you. Take that offline, Donna.
Hey, Donna, they don't deliver on your road, but they do deliver on 132.
Right.
So if you put a mailbox out on 132, you could drive out to there and pick up your mail there, and they wouldn't charge you for a PO box.
I just started that this summer. I did just change from the post office box to doing it that way. Yeah.
Okay. They don't deliver on my road either. And I have a post office box. We have to pay for it. But if I want to put a mailbox out on 126, I wouldn't have to have a
post office box.
PO box.
Yeah. Well, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thought that Annie just had too is possibly starting a GoFundMe page.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, once we get an account, we can get link it to Venmo, PayPal. We can put those
Yep.
on our social
Yeah.
media pages.
Absolutely.
You know, do
Some of
that.
those will add up pretty quick.
A QR code, somebody just snaps it with their phone with a
Done.
Venmo or PayPal, and it's already set up to the bank account. Easy
Yeah.
breezy.
Absolutely. Yeah, we should definitely. So I'll have that information ready to go. I'm going to reach out to people about board memberships. If anybody watching is interested in being a board member, please send me an email, and I will get all this information together. And next meeting, I'll just have a summary. We'll have a summary, and we'll file, and we'll be ready to go. So definitely, ultimate goal is to just incorporate it as a nonprofit. So because that is the step to everything else. We can go from there. If anybody else has any more questions about the meeting with the main DEP, we have it recorded so we can go back through. I'm going to try to download the transcript and make a summary of that as well. I think I just have to just go on the account that I uploaded it with to get the actual transcript printable. So that way, maybe we can have some clarity on some of the things that we talked about today and some of the things that we were talked about. I do have notes. I have like multiple pages of notes as well, but I usually scribble them down very sporadically. And after about a week and a half, I draw arrows to a lot of things, and I'm wondering why I drew arrows to certain places and not others. So just got to transcribe them to my computer, and we should be good to go. But
Will you send out that YouTube link again with your next email? Because I have watched it. But after listening to people tonight, I'd like to watch it again. And if you can make it easy for me, I'd
yeah,
appreciate
no,
it.
I can definitely do it. That's why I do it. Yeah.
Okay. Now I cut Tom off.
Oh, Tom, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question, Nick. We
Yep.
keep talking about residents around the pond. We don't have a house up there, but we own land up there. I think we ought to be included in everything here.
I certainly agree, and I'll be much more cautious about the terminology there because I definitely think that anybody, I mean, I don't even own land there, and I have a vested interest in that place too. So I definitely agree. That's a great point, Tom. Thank you.
Tom, you're a resident in my book.
We have 2 nice pieces of property there. We love it up there. Maybe
You're a
we'll have,
landowner.
Yeah.
maybe we'll have something up there.
And even if
Nobody stopping you from putting a camper on it.
or a
We
tent.
got a 42-foot camper there.
Oh, nice.
There you
Okay.
go.
Ah,
You're a resident.
And even people who just own land, not even on Sabattus pond itself, like if they're in the tax base, any things might impact them as well. So I mean, I know, and Lou and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but a big framing of the cost of the dam this spring when you guys go to the towns is going to be the loss of potential tax revenue if the dam isn't replaced, correct? Because all 3 towns get a lot of money from lakefront property taxes.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or anything else before we jump off?
Nick, have you had a chance? I know we've talked about it a few times to coordinate any dates or potential dates on training for. I know we talked about the Secchi disc that Tom does. That Dan does, and then I think it was Linda last week or 2 weeks ago mentioned the core samples. I was shocked that we only needed 20 of them one time a year.
Yeah.
I think we should also put, I know the first thing is probably organizing into a nonprofit and board of directors, but we should also think about that as well. Because as cold as it's starting to get up here and the ice that's forming in the cove, I'm looking forward to summertime already. So
Absolutely. And so I've kind of hit a brick wall with one of my outreaches there. I'm going to transition to Linda based on the meeting we had last time. I'm just not getting any responses from the first person I had reached out to about that water monitoring program. So Linda had talked about working with us then, so I'm going to transition to that now, and I can get that going. So, that is on my list, but I definitely agree too, because I want that thing ready to go when the ice is out, because I think that's an important aspect of what we're trying to do. So awesome.
I just want to say hi to Diane from Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Diane. Is she there?
I think she was. I think she.
Okay. Okay. Hi.
Hi
Glad you're joining us.
No problem.
Mhm.
It's a good time for me, 2 hours earlier.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, right.
And I before we go, I did want to make a plug for Addie. Justin, you had talked about the like background administrative stuff that it took to get all this to get all that stuff going and to get them on that panel. I originally reached out to them in June, and just a lot of back and forth coordination. And Addie did a lot of coordination on her end with the actual members themselves. Essentially, we were talking back and forth for a few months, and they were waiting for their busy season to be done as well. But certainly a lot of work on her end, and just a lot of like coordination on both of ours. So definitely, it takes some time, but I think it's really worth it to just get all this stuff together and going through those motions to build those relationships is important. So
And
yeah.
are there any, I probably should know this, but I don't, 'cause I'm not from that area really. I didn't grow up in that area. Are there any representatives in that live on the lake?
Yes.
Yeah, Steve Wood is the
Steve Wood.
representative for Green and Sabattus, and he is actually on the dam commission. Randy Greenwood is the state representative for Wales in Monmouth, and he is a board of select member for Wales.
And he used to be on the dam commission.
And he used
Are
to be on the dam commission.
they not interested in joining this group?
So I've talked to Steve on the phone way back in, I think, March or April, when I was first starting to reach out about this stuff. We talked for a little while, and he was aware of this. They're on our email lists. I know Randy Greenwood and the board chair, Eric Gagnon of Wales, regularly watch our videos after the fact. And they're both on the dam commission as well. Actual physical attendance isn't a specific requirement to be a part of us. I do still receive emails from people who aren't able to come. It would be a positive thing, I think, if they were to pop in every couple times, just because some of their dual memberships as state representatives and also on dam commission is important. I think it's relevant, but people have lives too, people have schedules. But I'm willing to move the meetings different nights too, if that's the case. So I have them there. Sorry.
It would have been nice if one of them or all three of them could have been on our last meeting with the DEP and all that.
I did send out emails. So before we have every one of those meetings, I did it with Bates, and I did it with the last one, the main DEP one. I send out emails to every single politician in this area, the state senators, the county commissioners, the state representatives. And I even think I sent a message to George Golden one time. But some respond back, some don't. I did have a great conversation with Garrett Mason, who's the county commissioner for Sabattus, and I think Lisbon too. They're not necessarily connected in that way, but he was very excited about it when I had that conversation back this summer. A potential good resource. Just things need to happen, and then we can reach out that way. Like I said, but I'm a big proponent of people like in those positions attempting to come to these meetings if they can, just to at least hear our concerns and at least engage. And that's not a slight. I know, like I said, they do a lot of stuff, but I think it would be a positive. Yeah, I think it would be a positive either way.
Just want.
Yeah, but I reach out every time. So and Green, the board of selectmen in Green and the town manager of Green did reach back out to me before the main DEP meeting, and said that they weren't able to make it. I think there actually was a board member from Green on last time, though, if I remember correctly. But yeah, and I send out to Sabattus and Wales and stuff too, and Monmouth and Leeds actually as well. But they've been a lot more quieter. I don't think you think that it's directly connected in some ways, but
Yeah,
I
I think
thought it
you'll
was-
find that Green, Monmouth and Leeds they're not on the lake. They're in the
no.
watershed.
they're in the watershed, and that's very relevant from a complex
Well, it
systems
is relevant,
perspective.
but it is relevant, but not especially to them.
Well, yeah, that's the trick of it. Huh?
It was great that Sharon Siegel was there.
Yeah, no, Sharon.
Because she knows everybody, at least, you know, it's in terms of Wales, she can network.
And I do want to give a shout out to Dan and Lou, Dam Commission members, and they are here every time, or mostly every time.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing, and we do appreciate that. So seriously,
Wait a minute, Lou is on the Dam Commission?
yeah, he's a rep
Yeah.
from Green. Yeah,
Yeah,
Just recently. It's only been a month or so.
Oh, well, good for you.
But Dan, thank you for all the work you're doing.
Yeah.
hey, Lou, you come over and helped open the dam. That's a big plus.
You know what I think we should do, all of us folks who live right here? This is silly. We're all in different places. Maybe one time we can get together and have some coffee and talk about these things together at our house or somewhere, and make it really local, and think about who we know and who we can bring in to this and grow. I'm encouraged by this meeting. I've been like a little discouraged in the beginning, like it's all bad news, but now I'm feeling like we have a plan, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
I agree. Yeah, and I think optimism is very important. And I think I came to this whole thing saying that things are bleak, but they can change, and it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, but they can, and it does happen, and I think we can really make it happen. So. And Wayne too, I just want to say I've been seeing all the people you've been recommending to the page, and a lot of them have been joining. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Nick,
Yeah.
I've been at this for a long time, and the lake is basically the same as it was when I was a kid. But I'm still at it, or at least I'm still trying.
Absolutely.
But I'm getting old. We need young people to come in and take over.
Yeah, and
Young and smart, Dan, and we've got one.
just one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so I'm not too young anymore, honestly, but
Well, you're a lot younger than I am, Nick.
I did.
Yeah, and Justin and Leslie too. They're young.
That's right.
I did make some progress with the I did make some progress with the RSU4, the high school there. I think I talked about it the week before our meeting with the main DEP, but I was in correspondence with the assistant principal there to set up a little internship program, and also to with the head of the science department there also too, to do some presentations and maybe even a field trip in the springtime or something like that, or even a portion of some coursework or learning about this, because it is such a local issue that it's easily accessible, it's relevant to people, and it could help stimulate some type of environmental, like, learning and stuff and passion maybe. So that's good, that's progress, and a lot of irons in the fire, but it is together. Yeah. Sorry.
That's another good reason for the corporation too, because a lot of these high schools require community service.
Absolutely.
And as a nonprofit, we could sign off on it.
Yep.
Oh, could that be towards matching funds?
So one of the questions I am asking Addie is the labor that all of us have put in different ways, like, through like the work of handing out flyers or getting them printed, or writing copy for things, or like the background administrative work that I do. Does that count towards it? If that's the case, that's a positive. So I mean, I've been working at this since May or April, I'd say, was when this idea really started to form. when I started doing a lot of like work outside of my actual graduate school research for it. So kind of like the extra stuff. So if I could account for that, that would be a big deal, but I don't know. So that's just something I have to ask about. But
Keep in mind, Nick, that keep track of your time just for that reason, because like the snowmobile clubs and stuff like that, all the man hours that are put in are filed with the state for reimbursement.
I actually have been. I have a huge spreadsheet of all the
Good.
hours I put in. So
Because like I said, there's a chance that some of that you could put numbers on.
yeah.
Well, I
yeah.
hope it comes to $12,500.
I mean, I don't know if people value my. I don't know if the state values my time that much, but that would be nice if it did.
Well, like I say though, the state funding for the snowmobile clubs includes volunteer time.
Mhm. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's the grooming. They pay so much a mile for grooming. Well, that's volunteer
Right.
time.
yeah.
Well, it's not just grooming. There's a lot of trail
No.
maintenance involved, spring and fall signage. That's all
Yeah.
volunteer time. And
Coordination.
they do put numbers on it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. How much? Ken, do you know how much they charge, like per hour, or I guess value their time per hour? Is that a thing?
I don't right offhand, no.
Okay, I'm sure. Or Leslie, maybe you might know too. Or
Well, to operate some of those groomers is expensive.
oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just buying the fuel for them.
It'd be
That is
interesting to
true.
know what their operating budget is, though, just as a baseline for
Mm.
to compare.
Well,
That'd be
our
interesting.
snowmobile club in Wyndham averages 25 to 30,000 a year for operating budget. And a lot of that is a lot of it's state reimbursed. But some
Yeah.
of it's from memberships and various other things. But we've got 38 or 40 miles of trail that they maintain. And like I say, it's anywhere from 20 to 30,000 a year between bridges and lumber and everything else.
And how does the state get that money? Is a part of that set aside from snowmobile registrations?
Yes.
Or is it like the Maine Snowmobile Association, or how does that work?
Between the MSA and the state wildlife and fisheries, I think.
So
But
I
it's
wonder if all of us, when we register our boats every year, if there's some sort of percentage that's taken out of that from the state that goes in. And I don't know if Addie would be a resource for that, Nick, if that goes into a fund to the state for lake resource and management. Even 2%, 1% to 2% of registration fees for boats a year. That would be very helpful.
yeah. I mean that.
The registration money that we get in Wyndham is from the town. So you have to go to the town to get it.
Yeah,
But it's a good point that there could be
Yeah, but the
registration money at a state level that's earmarked for various other things.
Yeah, the money.
I know on snowmobiles, there's money. The state pays so much per mile
From year to year.
for grooming the trails. And in Sabattus, there's a certain amount of money that the town gets that they turn over to the snowmobile club.
That's probably the registration money.
Yeah.
That's what we get in Wyndham is the registration money.
But only a part of it.
Well, it's something.
Yeah, and I don't know what the formula is. I
You know,
just
We
know
had to
that.
fight. That's an individual town type thing because we fought for it for years because the town wasn't even giving it to us. And we finally got them to pass it over. I don't know if it's half or 30% or 40%. I don't remember what the numbers are, but it took us several years to fight with the town to finally get the money.
Yeah,
And it helps a lot with the budget.
Yeah, it might be that a portion of it is already spoken for, earmarked by the state or the town, but that's also one of those things that, just talking to the towns, it could be, hey, do you want to have a portion of your money go towards this type of a thing? So,
And once we're a nonprofit LLC, we can petition for those things.
Right. Well, the other problem that you run into is that my boat's not registered in Sabattus.
oh, yeah,
How does that break down?
yeah, that's true.
It's registered in.
We're gonna have to charge you that Massachusetts tax then,
Oh!
even though you're from Maine.
Hey, Nick,
Yeah,
you had mentioned about submit for this grant or whatever is a fee of $150.
That would be the registration for the nonprofit. I think it's a little bit more because you have to get there's a base level fee, and if I'm remembering correctly, it was like around 120 to 150, and then there's also another type of fee after that. If I'm remembering right.
Like when this comes down to how we're going to set this up, let me know where I can send a check, who I can send a check to help you with that.
Absolutely, yeah. I can definitely let everybody know. Yeah.
Nick, why don't you just give us your address anyway, in case we want to send you a Christmas card?
You
Well,
can
let's
send me
do
Chris.
cards to Nick directly, but Justin and I were just talking, we'll go set up a PO box
Right. Perfect.
tomorrow in Sabattus, and it will just be for this. So that will at least we'll have that set up for, because you don't want to send it to Nick to have him send it out of state.
Right.
And so if we're starting like fundraising, and Nick, I think part of it is getting, like, if you just need money for the fee, like, we got that covered. So we'll figure that out kind of offline, or you know.
Yep.
And it sounds like we have enough support to get that done, and we're happy to help. And then we'll set up the accounts can be through the PO box, and then probably the local credit union, if that's cool with people, but we'll figure that out later.
That's exactly what I was thinking, honestly.
They probably donate money.
Need a name to put on the check.
And
That's
yeah,
it. We need we just need to
Would be
set
the
this
Watershed.
up, the Watershed
Right.
project.
yeah,
And then that's the account.
As soon as you have, let us know, let me know, and maybe send it, whatever that address is and everything, and we'll make sure we take care of some of that.
okay, perfect. I'm continually impressed every single meeting, guys. Seriously, yeah.
I think there's enough support in this group to cover a couple $100.
Easily.
I think so.
Yeah.
As long as we know where to send it.
Yeah, that's right.
Give me
That's
a PO box number and we're set.
And who to make the check out to.
Yeah, well, I think we'd have to set up under the Sabattus Pond Watershed project. You'd have to set up an account.
That would work.
Yeah. Technically, it's I would not even created yet. I'm pretty sure when we did the naming process, I made sure to look, and that is not a name that's anybody used. Why would anybody use Sabattus in their name for anything? Besides us? So I think we're good there. But
At a yacht club.
yeah. Well, I mean, they're not I mean, as long as we're different, we're good, or at least with other words. But
We
Well,
got the Sabattus Lake Dam Commission. We have an account.
yep, yeah. How much does the town fund you guys this year? I'm gonna stop recording. But
$3,000 a year right now.
from each or just from
Each town.
okay.
Each town.